we're waiting, let me just introduce the panelists. So Sri Saftiri is the Deputy Executive VP of Customer Experience and Digitalization at Telkom Indonesia. And Yogesh Malik, as you've probably seen him earlier, Executive Vice President and CTIO of Tele2. The Tele2 Swedish telecoms operator, also operating in the Baltics. And here with me, Russ Kevrin, VP Global Sales of Ayla Networks, leading provider of digital twinning, device management, and application enablement, mainly for IoT. And we've got Benedict and Vianney, VP of Professional Services from Intent HQ, a customer intelligence platform optimized for telcos and user data. And I'm Andrea Sola. As you probably met me earlier, I'm an analyst at Omdia covering service provider strategies and emerging technologies. Yep. Hello, Yogesh and Sri. Can you hear us? Can you hear me? Great. Sri?
Perfect. Thank you.
Would it be possible to put the videos up here? Okay, great. So this panel is kind of a hybrid version. So there's two panelists here and two online. Unfortunately, not everyone can travel these days still, but yeah, I've got Sri all the way from Indonesia and Yogesh in Stockholm, Sweden. So let's get started. First of all, with Sri, I've got a first question for you. Could you provide a brief introduction to how you're using AI and big data integration to improve customer experience at Telkom Indonesia?
Okay, thank you. So AI helps telcos fast forward the journey, evolving from digital telco towards a AI to generate new ideas and solve problems autonomously. So many telcos globally, including Asia, has implemented AI to improve customer experience. Voice activated virtual system, customer behavior traits, customer care, artificial intelligence, and AI-driven CX. So there are several pieces that we can use in terms of AI and data virtualization to improve customer experience. That was just something for how telco can AI and data virtualization.
Yeah, could you elaborate a bit further? I think we only caught about half of what you're saying. We had some technical issues here. Connection was breaking up. Could you give some examples how you're using AI and big data integration?
Right. So we have several use cases that we implement for improving customer experience, like chatbot and AI virtual agents, call route issue and solution, call sentiment, back-end process automation. So AI capabilities can also be used to empower agents to deliver great customer experience. And we have also AI and athletes for our triple pay services by offering achieve three goals. First is how we deliver content personalization by delivering real targeted marketing and optimized product services. Second, to provide immediate and effortless resolutions by AI by developing conversational AI for customer service to maximize customer experience. And the third is business customer acquisition and retention by generating customer impact using predictive analytics.
Great. And were there any challenges that you had to overcome, and how did you go about it?
Right. At least we implementing AI, we have to solve three challenges in order to implement successful application of AI for customer experience. The first is data unification. Data unification to create a single customer view is a challenge because it is a must for any type of behavioral. And the second is real-time insights delivery. For AI to impact the customer experience, actionable insights must be shared in real time. So, and the third is in terms of the challenge for business context. For AI to deliver value, it must be given some context. The context it means more than simply designating a certain interaction, an inbound call, and another as fulfillment. So AI must know the significance of events in shaping a customer behavior. Thus, by solving those three challenges, we can build a successful application of AI customer experience.
Thanks. Let me bring in Yogesh at this point. Tele2 as the other operator here on the panel. Could you talk a bit about your usage of AI and big data and the benefits, especially for customer experience?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Andreas, and good morning. It is, I'm not sure if you can you hear me properly?
Yes, we can, yeah.
Yeah, so it's extremely used words, AI, ML, data. We haven't come to the extreme depth of digitalization. So the way I would describe is digital is an ocean, while the depth can be as deep as Mariana Trench. So AI would help us explore that depth. And I'll give you three use cases where we are making progress, but there is a journey to go. We start with the customers, which means channel, product, and troubleshooting. That's on the customer side. So concretely, how can we improve channel performance online versus web versus retail versus our own retail? Product, how do you upsell? How do you make sure you give a converged product? And why do you do that? Troubleshooting, if a customer has a problem, can they self-serve to the satisfaction of troubleshooting of a Wi-Fi, a TV, or connectivity, broadband/fixed? The second example is on operations, predictive maintenance, and energy consumption. How do you reduce energy in 5G? And how do you become faster and self-healing? And the third use case on the value chain is on supply chain. How do you deliver faster to the site? And how do you get lower truck rolls? How do you make sure that the engineer going to a site can fix the problem on the site? So those are the categories. I hope that gives us an illustration how Tele2 is thinking about it.
Can you also talk a bit about
Challenges that you had to overcome and how AI or big data integration have helped you to achieve your goals?
It's a great question as well. And here, one of the bigger challenges for us is skill set. Stockholm, Nordics are very hot for talent, and the AI talent is actually a global talent. It can be reused very fast. So we are heavily focusing on nurturing the talent, getting straight from the university, and making sure that we are able to kind of inculcate that in different domains of business. So that's one challenge, and we are continuously going through it. So retention, uplift of skills. A second one is business interface, because it's easy to say we have all the solution, but if business colleagues do not really take that into production, we will not see the full benefit. So that's a second challenge. And the last one, to keep it to three, for us, it is go step by step into the future, because it is so many areas we can improve, from time reporting to supply chain to operations to channel, that we need to go use case by use case and demonstrate step by step that we get more confidence, and hence more business bridges, and hence a better retention and the AI skill inculcation within our company.
Let me bring in Russ from Ayla Networks as a provider of digital twinning, and you provide also device management, application enablement for IoT. So where do you see any challenges and opportunities for telcos by combining AI with IoT, and how do your solutions come in?
Well, so I would also add that I would lead with Ayla Networks as an AI ML company that happens to also do IoT. If you look at service providers, and I appreciate the comments from Yogesh and Shri, because it aligns with our service provider customers around the globe. They're all saying the same things. IoT is just a piece of equipment, right? Whether it's provided by the service provider in the core network, or a broadband router, or a radio on the street, and ultimately, what IoT and data and what we're doing in the AI ML space is taking a step beyond just core network and looking at how the customers, whether they're enterprise customers, as Yogesh was talking about, or consumers, broadband, wireless, converged services, they they're consuming more than just a broadband or wireless service, right? And ultimately, if you look at consumer homes, the complexity in the home is exponential, right? Number of connected devices, the complexity of the gateways sitting in the home, their servers, and so we believe that that's an IoT product, right? It's an edge product, and we want to provide the capability of taking data, how the customers are consuming the service, whether it's provided from a company like Tele2, or it's Ring, doorbell cameras connecting to Yogesh's network. The customers don't care; they just want it to work. And ultimately, Shri and Yogesh are taking calls from these customers. AWS or Ring aren't getting those calls if they're having connectivity issues. And so what we're doing is taking that data and doing normalization on it to identify the issues and get to predictive. So ultimately, the call center becomes nice to have, not a must have.
Where do you see that going over the next few years? Any further development that you expect? Any trends affecting the telcos?
Yeah, well, I think it's going to continue to. It's a very competitive market. Margins are under pressure, and so moving up the stack beyond just connectivity is what all the service providers are doing. So Yogesh and Tele2 are playing in IoT. You look at converged services, streaming services. Smart home is making a huge push. With the advent of the launch of Matter, you're going to see these ecosystems of devices open up, and we believe at Ayla Networks, in our experience in the home and connected devices, and our background in big data, and my colleague Sebastian, who some of you probably heard talk about our Transform AI platform. We believe it's going to play a critical role, that you just have to get smarter. And one of the challenges we see with data, and what everybody's talking about is data. You got to get more data. The problem is you also have to understand the commercials around it. Getting a little feedback. If you're putting that data in the cloud, it costs money. So you have to optimize around that, and that's a core focus of what we do. Normalize the data, make sure it's in a format that's consumable and usable for algorithms and our ML models, but doing it in a way that's cost effective.
Yeah, I believe that closely relates to your area as well, Benedict. And Untitled HQ, you guys provide a customer intelligence platform for telcos and user data. So could you talk a bit about your strategy for enabling telcos to gain a deeper understanding of customers and their preferences through your AI-based solution?
So I guess at Intent HQ, a lot of the focus in the conversations that we've been having over the 2 days of the sessions have been on how to use AI and ML to improve the network performance. And that would have consequent, benefits for customer experience. And from Intent's perspective, we focus not so much on the network, but on the person using the network. So now there's a ton of data which comes from their behavioral actions on the network, be that through a smartphone or actual voice calls, which can be, with consent and in a privacy-safe way, utilized. And what that can give insight into is the customer's perception of really two things: value for money. So the services that they're receiving and the manner in which they're receiving those services, are those seen as being positive or negative for that individual and for groups of similar individuals? And then the second thing is the positive or negative value of the interactions that the communications provider is having directly with those people. And the joining sort of piece between that perception of value and that understanding, the effect of the interactions with the individual is relevancy. And I think both Yogesh and Sri brought this point up. Are the products that are being offered matched to the interests of the individual, which can be derived from data? And also, are you reaching out to people at the right times with the right frequency? And are you correctly not reaching out to people? So there is a role to play, and I think it's an emerging role within telecommunications operators that telecommunication operators, because of behavioral data they have that no one else has, are uniquely positioned to capitalize on, where the focus can move from technology, which is very safe and very, very good ground, but also to the people themselves, and derive predictions of really high validity and derive facts about those individuals that can help improve the customer experience.
Yeah, so it's quite a lot about simplifying the customer care process that you want to leverage AI, also robotic process automation and other technologies. How does everyone else see it? Maybe Russ, you have a few comments there, how this process could be simplified for the telcos? What kind of solutions could be implemented for simplification specifically?
Well, I think one of the key things we see is a disconnect around context, right? So you have data scientists and data engineers, and they understand algorithms, and they understand how how to code that, but the context around the data is a lot of times where people, and companies flounder. And so I think to bridge that gap is really, really important, because data without context is useless. And so we're working really hard to provide that context to make a more seamless experience for the customers. Because ultimately, broadband subscribers or wireless subscribers, they don't want to call support, right? They don't want a truck to roll out to their house. They don't want to swap a device. And so if we can take the data, and Bennett, as you said, the personalization, right? How is that individual customer consuming your service and your product? And then take that data and that intelligence for that individual customer, surface it to the service providers, and bring that customer into the support mechanism. As Yogesh said in his session earlier, we want to empower the subscribers. Ultimately, if we can completely take any human interaction out of support, where we're automating fixes or making changes to alleviate the problem before the customer ever experiences it, which is predictive ML. That's where we are focusing a lot of our time, and we've been very successful with our service providers. But additionally, if a contact is coming, how do we enable the customer? If we can't do it from an automated fashion, how do we empower them to with the data to say, take these following steps? Tele2 is communicating, or Telecom Indonesia saying, hey, we understand you have a problem, and do X, Y, Z to fix it.
Sri and Yogesh, do you have any comments as well, how you're simplifying the customer care process through technology?
Yeah, we have RPA, robot processing automation, with the machine learning for our integrated operation center, and that helped us to automate 54 tasks, and that brings us to ability to deliver excellent operational delivery for our customers. It will also us.
It's breaking up. Could you just repeat that, please? Quite an.
So we have implemented RPA, robotic processing automation, with machine capability for our operation center, and that has enabled us to automate 54 tasks, and we are able to deliver excellent operational capability, which in the end also customer experience.
Yogesh, any comments from your side as well for Tele2?
Yeah, I think it's a pretty broad question and extremely relevant to Tele2. We want to simplify the products, offerings, and the channel mix. And I think that's the only way we can do that right now, is use that data-driven AI and have the discussions to make a decision in the right rhythm. So as an example, if there are products which are really occupying a lot of channel capacity, commissions, and BSS processing, we want to isolate them and upgrade the customers to the next product so that we can free up capacity and come closer to the customer. So that would be one example, but the devil is in the details, and we just need to go step by step in this. So, but it's a great application, continuous simplification.
That nicely lead to my next question as well. How can telcos refocus on customer experience and ensure that they meet today's needs? So a bit more broader than just simplifying the experience. Anyone got any comments on that? Feel free to jump in. Yeah.
Implement.
To refocus on customer experience and ensure that they meet today's needs. So yeah, in the context of AI, big data integration, and everything else.
I think we could all take a lesson from Daft Punk and have fewer, better, faster, and more relevant interactions with customers. Just by way of example, one of the really neat projects that we worked on year before last was for Black Friday, and this telco's customers are inundated with offers because nobody really knows what an individual is interested in. So they're at the same time, the telco wants to expand their offerings and make them relevant through partnering with other organizations, other products. And for this example, they had 14 different partner offers that they could reach out to their base to retain the customers and to provide value. But hitting people with a message, giving them 14 options for an upsell will just lead to complexity paralysis, decision paralysis. But we were able to use data and understand people's really very subtle interests and match those to the product so that each individual only got one message, but the message that was predicted to have the highest relevancy and success rate for that individual. And in the precursor to that, we were able to try to understand of the many, there's lots of organizations that want to partner with a telco for access to market. You have to choose which ones to partner with and not waste time on things that won't have cut through. So completely anonymous data around the trends and the lifestyles of the individuals allowed for choices that went beyond just demographics. But that was just so that the whole idea was fewer interactions, more timely and faster through the right channel, and with simpler messaging for individuals that didn't confuse them.
That makes sense from an offer and behavioral standpoint. If we look at it, customer experience from support and issue mitigation and resolution, I think it's technology as well as business process. And I think that the shift that service providers have to make is, number one, if I'm rolling out a service, defining what my data strategy is, right? Where am I putting the data? How do I centralize it? Because these service providers are very large organizations, and what we see is discontinuity. So you have call center, operations, you have the truck, the dispatch teams, you have engineering, you have core network, and a lot of times there's decentralized data in each group, and so there needs to be a central location that all the teams are working off of, the source of truth, if you will, to help make those decisions. And it's all about the data and using the data to drive the decision making, as the last speaker spoke about.
Is there anything you can recommend telcos when they roll out any AI-based solution to avoid any common pitfalls or any to take advantage of any opportunities?
I would say that work from the use case back. A lot of times what we see is people get really excited about AI and ML, and they're spending a lot of money on data acquisition and data scientists. And I would just say, look at it from what are you trying to accomplish with the data, and be very agile. Start with a step one, right? If you're talking about customer experience, it's first getting the data in and normalizing it, making it useful, right? Step one. Step two would be now, what are my biggest problems, right? And we usually, in our broadband implementations, one of the key things we start with, if you're talking gateway in the home, we start there. Customers, all of us, right? What happens when your computer locks up, right? Or your Wi-Fi is not working correctly? What are you doing? you reboot, right? Every service provider across the planet, that's what they're training their customers to go do is reboot. And so what we're trying to do is take that and predict why the customer, why is that individual box or something in the network causing the customer to reboot. And once we can quantify that, we can predict it, right? We characterize the issue, we predict when it's going to happen, so then we can take action. And that's our jumping off point from a broadband standpoint is why is that customer taking action? And then, working with folks like Shri is once we take that action, taking call center data, doing things like natural language processing to see, did that customer call? If we took action, did that customer call? Did we remove a contact? Did we remove a truck roll? Did we remove a device swap? And ultimately, from a CX standpoint, did we positively impact churn? And that's a great jumping off point. And that's where Ayla Networks focuses, when we start with a service provider.
Benedict, anything to add from your side? Any advice for telcos?
I quite liked Yogesh's point that we haven't yet plumbed the depths of the digital environment that we swim in, and I think that there are. Okay, so one thing that's just a bit parochial that I could say is work with people that have domain expertise, but around use cases that you already understand will derive value because there's too much to do. One of the challenges that we have is just gaining the focus of the teams that we work with to match the business drivers, right? So we often work directly with the individuals that are marketing or that are speaking with the end customers, and we just work very hard to bring back their pain points and their drivers into the business and try to mediate that conversation. Just so you stay on target, because there are such limited resources. If you don't concentrate those resources, then the chance of really a monumental sort of watershed moment is decreased. And probably one of the reasons that we kind of feel that way is when we first discovered that you could derive highly granular interests from behavioral web and call data. And we exploited that in the first few campaigns that we did. We saw almost 100 to 200% uplift, but that only works if you get all of the dominoes lined up. So being really fastidious about working from the use case backwards and keeping everything focused, given the huge numbers of distractions for the use of AI and ML personnel, would be the focus point that I would come to.
Yogesh or Sri, anything to add from your own experience or any advice you'd like to give to your peers, to any other operators?
Hey, do you want to go ahead first or you want me to?
I think in terms of the advice that is required is how Telco can leverage customer data and also network data, and from those data, the Telco can have the single view of behavior. And the second thing that is most important is artificial intelligence. There is a word art, and art means requires human. So that is most important to implement is the human itself. So how we build the capabilities and the modeling, the capabilities that is working at Telco. Those are the things that I would.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is we need to be open-minded and share, because here there is nothing which has reached the full potential yet. So at least that's our approach in Tele2, to learn and to find new avenues to increase the top line and to make sure we are more and more efficient every day. So I don't have anything more to add. It's just that.
Oh, thanks very much. So we can open up for any further question from the audience. Yes, please. Yeah, so I have a question for Sri and Yogesh. Yeah, I have a quick question for Sri and Yogesh. So many problems today. Yeah, can you guys hear me?
I have a question for Shri and Yogesh. Is that you'd mentioned that you have a hard time finding talent, you have a few objectives, and I noticed that telcos are very conservative. What are your concerns about just leveraging a startup that already knows, who's done a lot of R&D? It seems like Russ, what's your name? Yeah, Russ and Ben, they would have a proven solution that's worked. What's some of the concerns that you have to just leverage that to get started? And it's much less risk. It's probably going to cost less in terms of how long a time by the time you have some useful results. So that's kind of my questions. And it's funny I asked because I actually worked at Verizon. We had never worked with startups. We don't want the headache. We'd rather take longer. We don't get fired. We take longer because we're safe. But now, it's becoming more competitive. Technology is changing so fast. Why not just leverage what startups have already done?
Sri and Yogesh, did you hear the question okay? No?
It
No.
was hard for me.
Okay, to summarize, the question was about overcoming some skills gaps and working with startups. So how do you see that? Any challenges in working with startups to gain their expertise?
No, I think I get it. So yes, skill gap is there. We are working on that. But meanwhile, startups are extremely interesting. AI for Green is a project in Stockholm running for GSMA, and it is extremely important for us to participate, and we have startups there, and we learn from each other. So absolutely, and I think this is where open-mindedness really needs to come. At the same time, we need to build the talent as well, because this work is not going to stop. It will just increase over time.
Yeah, the way I heard that question is Yogesh and Shri need to have a meeting set up with Benedict and I.
Good.
No, but no, I would add to.
You're already there with Shri and Yogesh?
No, we're actually talking to someone from Shri's team, so we should connect out afterwards. But I completely agree with what Yogesh said. From our point of view, we believe in open, right? And Sebastian talked yesterday, open source. We want to open up our capabilities, provide certain aspects of IP to the broader community. Obviously, we're going to keep some back for ourselves, but we see the benefit as getting to use case value very quickly, right? So turning something up and that's proven and getting that benefit very, very quickly. The other thing too is you talk about algorithms, machine learning models. If I can bring a model that predicts customer behavior and it's been trained against 25 million homes or wireless subscribers around the globe, and I can bring it to Tele2, that is something that they can't get internally, right? Because they only have access to their data. Additionally, we believe that folks like Tele2 and building out this data analytics team, we want to create this open environment where it's not a closed ecosystem. If there's models and work that Yogesh's team is doing, we want to incorporate it into the models we're bringing to the table to just, it's 1 + 1 = 3.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions from the audience? Yes, please.
I had a question about streaming technologies, the latest this joint venture between Comcast and Charter. You got the Roku, you got Amazon streaming, you got Google. I mean, everyone's got a streaming hardware and platform. The question is, what sort of opportunities does that create for AI and ML regarding streaming data and streaming technologies? And what are some of the risks and challenges with streaming to your business?
So the question was about streaming services. So what are the challenges and opportunities when you use any streaming services for data and yeah, any other services related to that? Any comments on that? Yogesh or Sri?
You mean streaming end user services? Is that what we're talking?
Yeah, video
Yes.
streaming.
So video services.
So we have just announced that we have integration entertainment experience deal with Viaplay, NENT in the Nordics, and that is streaming. So I think that uses almost 2 billion logs per day, more than that. So that's our TV streaming service. We definitely use AI for that because without that, it would be impossible to figure out which customer is facing which bad quality in the streaming experience, if I understood the question right.
That's spot on.
Thank you. Sri, anything to add from your side? Are you using any streaming services or planning to launch any AI-based ones?
Yes, we're providing TV and video streaming, also music streaming. And then, as Yogesh mentioned, that leverage AI in order to determine the best routing to make a great experience in terms of the.
Thanks. Any other questions for the panelists? Oh, yes, one more. Yes, please.
Question to Yogesh and Shrim's generic question. If you look back at the 90s when we were connecting WANs and LANs, the telcos organized and effectively addressed that space with network operating centers. 10 years later, we're multiplying, the attacks and cyber attacks, and they brought security operating centers. Here, we're really talking about how we are automating from customer experience to the network. Are the telcos, in particular Tele2 and Telecom Indonesia, addressing this with what I would call an automation operating center? And will their technology groups drive that? I'd be interested to know, is that a business orientation? Does that make sense?
You get the question about security and automating security features. Also, since you've
The question is, do you have an automation operating center in the works at Tele2 or Telecom Indonesia?
you have an automation operations center within Tele2, for example, or Telcom Indonesia.
Yeah, I mentioned earlier that we have implemented Telcom Integrated Operation Center 5.0, in which we leverage AI with machine learning to automate 54 tasks in order to deliver great operational excellence. And we also use RPA to automate those tasks. But I don't understand what is the question for this.
Okay. Any comments from Tele2? Do you have a similar center for security purposes for dealing with those types of workloads to automate these processes from a security perspective?
So we have multitude of services and a legacy. We did go through a merger with TDC, Telecom Denmark, and we have gone through a merger with Comhem over the last 3-4 years. So you can imagine the kind of need of automation. And as I mentioned before, we are supplying to municipalities where security is of extremely high, and we host data centers for our clients, enterprise clients. So I think this is a continuous process, I can say, getting over with the legacy, going into a full automated setup, and to have security by design into those processes. That's our approach.
Great. And any
The
further
questions from the audience? No? Okay, thanks very much to all the panelists, both online and in person. And yeah, feel free to reach out and connect. Let us know in case you like to connect with any other telcos, other providers. We're happy to help here at Omdia. Thank you.